Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Today we are looking at some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you enjoy the video. The first story is called I Won't Have an Employee Disobeying Me. I had a stint at McDonald's a few years back. It was my first job and I ended up being there for 3 years. I became the most respected crew member and was paid better than half the managers. About 2 days before I ended up quitting, my general manager had the entire crew doing customer satisfaction surveys to boost the store's rating for the owners and corporate. I felt it was wrong and decided, hey, I just leave a neutral review. Not hurt the store, but don't lie about things. About 2 hours later, the GM called me. Hey, can you tell me why the heck you left this review? I felt it was wrong to lie just to boost reviews. The general manager complains a bit. Then he says, you should really consider if you really want to work here or not. I won't have an employee calling me out or disobeying me. At this point I was peeved. I've done nothing but good work. I've put up with all his bad ideas for years. I've let his choices slide before. Example, false advertising, telling us to serve all nasty food to reduce waste and so on. Cue malicious compliance. So 2 days later, I put in my 2 weeks notice. And this is where it got funny. I had my manager buddy get a list of employees and their wages. Not my proudest moment, but I went around and told some people who were underpaid about people who were ridiculously overpaid. A couple of them being because of nepotism. The mom was a manager, who also was severely overpaid. My last day came and went, and the fallout began. The supervisor had told the general manager to hire 20 new people by the end of the month. Only 5 ended up getting hired, and then I quit. Within 2 weeks, he had 6 of his 8 managers walk out, as well as 5 of his only reliable crew. Satisfaction reviews plummeted. Drive-through times increased from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. Profits fell from 10k a day to 4k a day. And all it took was 3 weeks, and this fool got himself demoted. My leaving wasn't the sole reason people quit, it was just the start. But all he had to do was to be honest, decent, and not to be an ungrateful jerk. Even his own cousin quit. The next story is called Do What I Say. This takes place back in 2014. I was a kitchen manager of a franchise of a novelty pizza chain that was brought to the West Coast from the Midwest. It was a fast casual type of place and I was responsible for literally everything involving the back of the house. Inventory, ordering, scheduling, training, cross-training, cooking and so on. The general manager, let's call him Dan, theoretically knew how to do the ordering and inventory and the vagaries of the menu items. But he was transferred from an entirely different restaurant. The franchisees owned a lot of different restaurants and wasn't really familiar with much of anything. I say this not to overstate my own importance, but rather to highlight how one person was essentially the only one in the restaurant that could run the kitchen effectively. I was always begging the regional manager to let me train someone else in most of my duties, but it got never approved. I worked the same hours every week with the same days off. And since I wasn't making much, I decided to get a second job as a line cook at a small restaurant by the beach. I loved this job because it was so mind-numbing after stressful days at the pizza job. I had no real responsibilities aside from cooking whatever came up on my tickets and cleaning up at night. I ended up working about 70 hours a week between my 2 jobs and working every day. So Dan and I butted heads a lot at the pizza place because he had these ideas about how to improve efficiency. And I had a huge list of things to do and knew how to do them in the time I had available. I would pay lip service to him and then just go about my day getting things done. Well, one day we are short-staffed. I'm finishing up my inventory, getting ready to hand the order list over to Dan to place, because that was one of the things he thankfully knew how to do well. He tells me that I need to stay late because he's one racked in the front and I need to place the orders, which takes about 2 hours minimum. The following conversation ensues. No can do, Dan. My other job starts in an hour. Well, then call them and tell them you'll be late. I'll be fired if I do that, so not gonna happen. Just put the purchase order in later when it's slowed down. No, either you stay and do it, or you can go to your other job and never come back. Okay, bye. I proceeded to wrap up the inventory I spent 3 hours taking, clocked out and went to my other job. I got frantic calls throughout the night and for the next few days from Dan and the regional manager asking me to come back. But I was over working a corporate job. I asked for and received additional hours at my second job and later that year decided to go to college instead of finding a new second job. I graduated with a bachelor's 2 years ago. That pizza place and the other ones the franchisees opened eventually closed because of a number of issues, poor management being just one of them. I hope you enjoyed today's video so far. If you want more content, please subscribe to the channel. And if you like the video, don't forget to press the like button. It really helps the channel to grow. And now, on to the next story. The next story is called Take It Outside. I worked in a Wetherspoons, a super cheap UK pub that was really close to the train station in my city. It happened to be the cheapest place to get drunk before moving on to the clubs and was close enough to loads of other bars. So we would be stacked to the rafters from about 7 PM to 11 PM. Full of absolute soozled fanny heads. This one particular evening was super busy and I was collecting empty glasses. I was under a lot of pressure from my boss to get rid of the empties because they were stacking up on every table. So I was swooping around, grabbing up jars, deftly dancing around the drunkards like a poorly paid ninja. I get to this one table and there's a drink on the side that has like a dribble left in it, and I mean a dribble. So I thought to myself, screw it, it's going, this lager is tepid, probably been abandoned. But before I could turn around, I was accosted by what I can only describe as a big hairy man, because that's what he was. Very drunk, very angry, he loomed over me and said, "You gonna get me a new one then, you threw away my pint." To which I replied no and attempted to move on with my life. This guy grabbed me, stopped me from leaving, and I started to see his crew gather around him, all equally mad and all very goonish. Clearly I had disturbed the alpha buffoon. "Do you wanna take this outside?" He leered in closely. "Yeah, go on then, let's take this outside." I replied curtly from out of my skinny face. "I'm not a fighter. If you saw my body you would know I was built to run away." I put down the glasses in my hand and casually beckoned him and the rest of his crew outside, flexing my neck muscles and pumping my twiggy arms. I walked out of the door and watched as the whole gaggle of idiots flowed onto the street outside, fight expectant, baying for blood. When the last flatulent steroid had passed the threshold, I turned casually to the bouncers and said, "Don't let these boys back in, they just threatened to attack me." And I sauntered back to work, leaving the group of shafted slime molds stuck outside, looking very upset. I caught a last glimpse of one particular alpha ballback, a look of wallpaper paste across his meaty face, still confused, trying to work out what had just happened to him. The next story is called Using Loopholes is Not Legal? Before the company was sold and then driven into the ground by the new owners, I worked as a patrol supervisor for a high-end security company. Now let's explain some things that are relevant to the story. Only supervisors got salary. Our normal working week was 48 hours, 4 12-hour days. Anything over that we got hour for hour paid time off in lieu of a normal vacation. Our contract stated that if a supervisor worked any position that wasn't as the supervisor on duty, they were to be paid an hourly rate based on the average hourly salary rate. The contract stated two more important things. The company can buy pay time off for 85% or more of its value if the employee agrees. The employee can also offer to sell it back for any amount. And contracts are valid for 1 year. If the employer wants to renegotiate before that time, the employer has to pay so much for each month the contract is still valid for. Not the exact phrasing, it's been a while, but you get the idea. For clarity, we are 5 months into our current contract at the time. Now the owner, I'll call John, was awesome. He expected a lot, but he treated everyone well. Gave his supervisors almost free rein, made sure officers had the best equipment to protect themselves, and was generally just a good guy. So we didn't give him much flack over little things. Now we asked for, and he gave, the supervisors a discretionary fund for our officers. On most nights we had an on-call officer, some nights we didn't. If we needed to call someone in, we could say, "Hey, come in and work and I'll buy you lunch," or "You want to come in but don't have the gas to get to your region and back?" Meet me at the gas station and I will buy you some gas. Little things to keep the supervisors from having to work weekends and do our jobs, plus it made everyone happy. The normal cost was around $450 to $500 a month, but saved the company thousands. He wanted a low turnover company and found ways to keep experienced people applying and staying with the company. Enter the new HR rep, Mary. She calls a meeting with us supervisors. She has some things she needs to discuss. So the next morning I and my fellow 2 supervisors show up. On the table was an end to the discretionary fund. It cost the company too much, she said, and stuck to it after us explaining how it saved money. Also, without going into specifics, we had to work exactly like our employment contract stated, no deviating. Also, any requests for promotions among the officers needed to be approved by her, which to her they were just a payroll number. Also, a bunch of other things designed to put herself between us and John to become our boss. Now, none of us had ever really read the whole contract, so at the end we went over it without her. Turns out there are loopholes we could drive a truck through, but legally valid. Now, we could have taken this to John, but we knew he would say to give it a chance, so we did. Seeing we were salary, our pay period was monthly, 30 days, instead of weekly. We also knew John didn't read certain emails or payroll until the end of the month. So we set out to do exactly as she asked, stick to the contract. So we each worked our 48 hours and other days of the week. I ended up working 24 days out of that month, my normal 84 hours as a supervisor plus an additional 24 to 38 hours a week as a regional patrol officer. Mostly because without our fund it was getting almost impossible to get people to come in on their days off. So we split it up, but I did the majority. We submitted a form for not only pay time off for those extra shifts, but a pay request for hourly for each extra shift. Which for me was $18.75 an hour for each one. I never went into hourly overtime for the week. At the end of 27 days, I accumulated over 100 hours of pay time off from the extra shifts and going overtime on my supervisor shifts. John was added to the email also, but the subject was end of the month form, which means he wouldn't read them until the end of the month to verify the ones Mary gave him were correct. Now, fast forward 27 days after the meeting, and John sent us an email stating he was aware of the situation and scheduled a meeting for 8 AM the next day. We get in there and he doesn't look happy, but Mary looked smug, so we got worried it might have backfired. Until John started, and basically it went like this. Gentlemen, Mary told me about your meeting. She didn't discuss it with me first, or I would have stopped it. I also know if you would have come to me, I would have said to try it out. Also, HR will never be in charge of the supervisors. You work for me, and me alone. Then he holds up 3 envelopes and hands them out. Here's your hourly pay for being region officers this month. Your normal pay comes at the normal time. He then hands out another envelope to each of us. This is my attempt to buy back all your pay time off you have gained this month at 90%. If you don't accept, give me the check back. None of us did. Now, here's another check each for the contract buyout, and I will have another one ready in the morning. I've also refilled and reactivated the cards for your discretionary fund. So use it as needed, and if you run out before the end of the month, email me. He then looks over at Mary. So Mary, how much did your idea save the company? $500, John. No Mary, it cost the company $12,000. That's what those checks total. Then Mary said something that I'm sure she got fired for. Come on, John, it's just words on a piece of paper and not really legally binding. Besides, the use of loopholes in a contract is illegal. That got us all staring at her. We may not have attended business school, but we are smart enough to know she was not only wrong, but dead wrong. Yeah, the next day John sent out an email saying the position was open and anyone interested to send in their resume. The only changes to our contract was adding that we could get pay time off or our hourly rate. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.